Yes, Busch Gardens Williamsburg, one of the most beautiful theme parks in the world. Known for its beautiful Virginian landscape and rolling hills, Busch Gardens Williamsburg is iconic for several reasons. The park features iconic attractions like Apollo's Chariot, the world's first B&M hypercoaster, and Loch Ness Monster, one of the world's oldest operating steel coasters, and the only coaster with interlocking loops. The park is also famous for the way the coasters interact with the terrain. Take Alpengeist, for example, a massive B&M inverted coaster. Alpengeist interacts with the terrain by diving in and out of a valley, and it's truly an incredible experience flying through the trees. It's one of coaster enthusiasts' favorite inverts, and is one of my personal favorite roller coasters ever built. It is also the only park to still house Clydesdale horses, which could be originally found at SeaWorld Orlando, SeaWorld San Antonio, and SeaWorld San Diego, as well as Busch Gardens Tampa. The park is divided up into several sections, hamlets as they were formerly called, each themed to countries or areas found in Europe, hence the park's former name being Busch Gardens Europe. Each area has seen attractions come and go, but one area has seen the most attractions by far get removed or relocated to another park, and this is the Oktoberfest section of the park, a subsection of the Germany area, where you can find several tasty dining options such as the Pretzel Kitchen and the massive indoor AC-controlled Festhaus, where several shows are performed. You can also find several kiddie attractions, including the chair swing and bumper cars. But this land used to be home to one of the park's first roller coasters, the Glissade, a Schwarzkopf jumbo jet that was very popular when it first opened. Guests would ride in a very tiny train sitting single file and head up a spiral lift hill. The rest of the layout consisted of the track swooping and diving around this primary structure, taking up a rather small footprint. Unfortunately, the ride dwindled in popularity and closed in 1985, before being relocated to Mexico as Tornado, where it still operates to this day. In 1976, the park would add a second coaster to this land, a Schwarzkopf Wildcat, creatively known as the Wildcat. Another relatively simple coaster for the park, featuring small 4-passenger trains and a track of swooping drops and hills, as well as spiraling helixes. The Wildcat actually didn't operate at the park for long, eventually closing in 1983. Just like the Glissade though, this coaster wasn't destroyed, and has been relocated to several parks, and currently operates at Adventure Park USA in Maryland. The Wildcat space wouldn't sit empty for long though, when the park added one of the land's biggest investments, and probably what is one of the most iconic coasters in theme park history.
Who's afraid of the Big Bad Wolf? Everyone who rides it at Busch Gardens Old Country.
Opening on May 15th, 1984, the Big Bad Wolf, designed by Aerodynamics, would be one of their suspended coaster models. Their suspended coasters would feature trains that would swing out as the track banks, making it more of a thrilling and honestly terrifying experience, as it looked like you were going to crash into the village walls or the trees surrounding the attraction. After over 20 years, the Big Bad Wolf would permanently close in 2009. The park would add its third Aerodynamics coaster in 1992, and it would be one of the worst coasters in theme park history, Drachenfire. Now, according to rumors, this was originally supposed to be a B&M sit-down like Kumba at Busch Gardens Tampa, but B&M was too busy doing something, so they resorted to aero building it and trying to replicate B&M. This would end up being Loch Ness Monster's Aerolooper's sister coaster, and it would eventually close in 1998 after its popularity quickly dwindled due to its painful experience. In 1996, the park would add another coaster to Oktoberfest, one that would have a pretty interesting promotional tie-in.
All eyes are on this track event. And here they come. What a thrill. They're strong into the first turn. Picking up speed. Into the next turn already. This is the time of their lives. Nobody's gonna catch them.
For a real wild Olympic experience, take a lap on Busch Gardens' new Wild Izzy.
They're coming into the final stretch. This is what they came here for. Oh, the crowd loves it.
Catch the fun now at Busch Gardens.
Wild Izzy, or as it would later be known as Wild Mouse, was a basic Mack-Rides wild mouse that could be found at any regional theme park around the world. It was eventually relocated to Busch Gardens Tampa in 2003. The park's design and engineering team knew that Wild Izzy's replacement had to be better than some off-the-shelf coaster plopped down on an empty plot of land in the park, so they began drafting up new ideas. But first, we must take a little field trip back to 1999, when the theme park industry was changed forever. when a small, relatively unknown theme park called Universal opened Islands of Adventure. Now, all jokes aside, I know I've talked about this park several times before, but for good reason. It revolutionized the themed entertainment industry, not only pushing the boundaries of technology, but how we theme and immerse guests in a theme park. Busch Gardens would find their inspiration within this park for their next big attraction, which they would sling into the future of themed entertainment themselves. The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man basically put a motion simulator on a track dark ride. This new technology, built by Oceaneering, basically allowed Universal to immerse guests within the story, putting them directly in the action. The ride vehicles, or scoops as they're called in the attraction, are capable of a wide degree of motion, basically being able to interact or react to anything put on screen. Speaking of screens, Universal developed a new technology known as squinching. Squinching is essentially adjusting the field of view as the ride vehicle moves with the screen. This allows it to be more immersive and more convincing. As incredible as The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man is, its ride system is a little too big and expensive for your average regional theme park. That's why Oceaneering developed the Evolution, a much smaller and more simple version of the Scoop ride system. Every park wanted something like The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, and Busch Gardens was no different, being one of the first companies to purchase this ride system. Now, Busch Gardens knew they wanted to revolutionize the concept of the haunted house attraction, but they didn't quite yet have a story. The designers would take inspiration from the infamous story of the Mad King Ludwig. To put it simply, his father died tragically after a 3-day illness, making him the king at only the age of 18. Of course, he did not care for ruling or policies, which made him very popular, for the time being. One of his many hobbies was architecture, and he built some of the most famous castles in Germany, such as the Neuschwanstein Castle. But his overspending and nearly sending Bavaria to ruin caused him to be removed from the throne. Just a day later, mysteriously, he was found dead floating in the castle moat, his cause of death still unknown. Of course, Busch Gardens would add their own fantastical elements to the ride to make it more exciting, turning the Mad King into an all-powerful ghost who haunts the halls of a castle frozen in time. With the story set, Busch Gardens was ready to announce their new for 2005 thrill ride. Towards the end of the 2004 season, the massive CastleOSullivan show building began to loom over Oktoberfest. Meanwhile, on the interior, the final spooky details were being added, prepping the attraction for its eventual grand opening the next season. On May 1st, 2005, Curse of Darkastle officially opened, with an extravagant opening ceremony. In fact, the ride was so popular on opening day that the wait time got up to over 5 hours long. Speaking of waiting in line, after entering through the castle gates, the Oktoberfest music would fade, replaced by howling wind and eerie, distant music. The garden queue also originally featured fountains frozen in time that were really just plants and weren't that convincing, so they were eventually removed for more shade. We eventually exit the garden queue, wandering deeper and deeper into this dark, mysterious castle. Once inside, we find that the wolf imagery continues, even down to the wallpaper. We wait outside a closed set of double doors, which open and welcome us into the castle's tapestry room. Mysteriously, the doors close behind us, and the tapestry seemingly comes to life.
Long ago, in the deepest heart of the Black Forest, a young prince lived, unloved, neglected, in a dark castle. Like the ghostly horrors that always grow in secret shadows, Prince Ludwig grew to be a troubled child. Soon even the kindest servants avoided his evil gaze. One dark winter's night, as Ludwig wandered the lonely frozen grounds of the castle, an old woman appeared. Outraged at this intrusion, Ludwig howled in fury. In her place crouched a snarling wolf. As her angry yellow eyes bored into Ludwig's, she revealed his dark destiny, wicked ruler of a corrupt kingdom. Guided by the wolf, Ludwig set out to take the throne. His parents tried to put an end to his ruthless ambition, but they mysteriously vanished. Mad little Ludwig became king and transformed the castle into an impenetrable fortress with secret passageways to terrify his guests. Soon the treasury was empty. King Ludwig's advisors tried to overthrow him, but he just laughed and threw a lavish winter festival in their honor. That night Mad Ludwig led his guests on a tour of the castle in his fleet of golden sleighs. No one knows what really happened, but they say the walls echoed with terror. The next morning, the sleighs were found in their stalls, but no one ever found Ludwig or his party guests. And to this day, the castle remains frozen in time.
After the pre-show ends, the wall raises, revealing the stables. After a short queue and being directed to our rows, we board a golden sleigh of our own. After loading into the ghostly sleighs and being dispatched from the loading area, the sleigh would make a left-hand turn into a spooky fog-filled forest with glowing blue lights and large ghastly trees. We then find ourselves in the castle courtyard where we have our first ghostly encounter.
You must go back outside the walls. My son has no power there. Hurry.
I see. We have guests. So, you've come to tour my castle. You'll simply die when you see it.
Our sleigh then enters through the castle doors and we find ourselves in the armory.
Allow me to introduce you to my friends. They've been waiting for you.
We then flee the armory and rotate into the music hall, where we have another encounter with the ghostly Ludwig.
Such hunger for my secrets? Come, he shall be fed!
The sleigh then rotates and reaches the next screen.
Sorry the place is such a fright, but isn't that the point? First course coming right up! You'll soon be getting your just desserts, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
Heading backwards down a set of stairs, Ludwig's mother warns us once again. Our sleigh then enters the library. Our sleigh begins spinning around, with Ludwig's evil laugh still echoing around us. It seems like there is no escape to this darkness, until we find ourselves entering the castle ballroom.
Killer party, huh?
Help him. You'll be safe beyond the castle walls. He can't get you there.
No! Mother, they're mine!
Not this time! Stop him!
Our sleigh is then flung into the air, where we find ourselves flying high above the castle walls.
Mother! You're driving me insane!
Ludwig, my son, you are never sane to begin with! I will not allow you to do this!
After nearly escaping, we find ourselves face to face with the ghostly trees once again. Thinking we're finally safe, we have one last encounter with the Mad King.
They are beyond your reach.
Curse of Darkastle operated in its original form for only one season. When the park closed at the end of the 2005 season, the design team carefully reviewed the guest feedback and realized the current version of the ride wasn't living up to its full potential. Allegedly, the feedback claimed that the ride wasn't thrilling enough, so they went back to the drawing board and called back Super 7 Studios to reanimate several sequences of the ride footage. The changes start right off the bat, with the first scene being completely reanimated from scratch. Now, instead of Ludwig's ghostly eyes appearing, a stone wolf jumps on the hood of the sleigh, with his disembodied voice saying the same line before, just re-recorded to be more angry and menacing. The kitchen/dining room scene was also completely reanimated. Now, King Ludwig angrily throws the table, and seemingly cuts off his own head. The hallway scene was also redone, now adding a blast of air, and adding new bits of dialogue between Ludwig and his mother. The biggest change, though, was swapping out the former ballroom bit for a brand new flying towers scene.
About to reach new heights!
The way out is beyond the castle wall! Follow me!
There is no way out!
The 2006 version of Curse of Darkastle cared less about story and had more emphasis on being thrilling and intense. And bizarrely, the refurbishment ended up making Curse of Darkastle's gags very similar to the ones used in The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. All jokes aside, Darkastle wasn't without its technical issues. It would sometimes get out of sync. For example,
You have such hunger for my secret? It shall be fed. Isn't that the point? Coming right up. You'll soon be getting your just desserts. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Out before it's ready. Oh, come, Mother. It'll be Come, don't hold back. It's time to leave things. The tour is about to reach new heights!
The way out is beyond the castle wall! Follow me! I won't let you fall.
Mother, you're driving me insane!
Take my son, you are never sane to begin with! They are beyond your reach.
Towards the mid-2010s, Curse of Darkastle's maintenance began to drop off. a lot of the projectors became blurry, and the ride's motion profile would slowly be toned down over and over again, eventually getting to the point where the ride vehicles would no longer thud after falling through the glass atrium, and no longer spin in the fireplace. Now, allegedly, the reason why they toned the ride profile down is because maintenance got really tired of refillable cups spilling in the ride vehicles. Yeah, it's that stupid. In 2017, the park announced that Curse of Darkastle would temporarily close during Halloween to be used as a new haunted house venue. Frostbite would follow the ride's layout exactly, with props covering the ride track and the pre-existing theming elements being used to enhance the ride's scenes. Even the screens were reused as well. Somehow, the house still felt cheap and lazy. After Halloween, Curse of Darkastle doesn't reopen. Instead, for Christmastown, it is used as Santa's workshop. Sure, Santa lives in a giant spooky castle. Try explaining that to your kids. Just like Frostbite, the ride's track was covered with props and the walls plastered with decals. This time they actually covered the screens instead of leaving them blank. To give them credit, this was probably the best they could do with the budget they had. Shortly after the ride closed to be converted into a haunted house, the rumors started circulating that the ride would never be reopening. Of course, at first people denied these claims, but soon they began to gain traction, and the park confirmed that the ride would be officially closing to be converted into a special events space.
I would like to thank you for joining us today as we unveil the latest addition to our dynamic lineup of thrill rides.
It creates an environment that is so surreal that you think you might have really experienced it. You actually go back and go, how did they do that?
After a poll on social media to decide the name of the new events venue, it was decided to be called Newcastle. The building was completely gutted, removing the screens, scenic elements, and ride track. But strangely, the ride vehicles hung out in the building for a small period of time. With the building being so large, they were able to fit 2 haunted houses at a time. Demented Dimensions was sent over from Busch Gardens, Tampa, and shared the building with a redesigned version of Frostbite. Demented Dimensions would occupy the back half of the building, while Frostbite would occupy the front half closer to the former loading area for Curse of Darkastle. And just in case if you were curious, yep, they continued to use the space for Santa's workshop. In 2019, the final house would take residence inside Newcastle. Fittingly, it would be Nevermore. Eventually, the park filed building modification permits for Newcastle, and rumors began circulating on what exactly would be its replacement. BGWFans soon leaked that it would be an indoor intimate straddle coaster dubbed Project Dark Coaster. They soon revealed that the ride had an exciting element, a switch track that allowed it to bypass the station and go around the course a second time. Of course, just a few months later, the park would officially announce Dark Coaster. The coaster had actually been already under construction for months at this point. Thanks to the pre-existing building, they were able to construct the ride out of the view of prying eyes. Dark Coaster is honestly a pretty incredible feat of theme park ingenuity, fitting a pretty lengthy coaster into a small space. Dark Coaster would of course pay homage to Curse of Darkastle through its wolf imagery. It would even reuse several theming elements left over from when the ride was gutted, including most of the queue. A new gift shop and photo stand was built outside the ride building, and the facade was repainted, with new ice elements being added to the main tower. In what seems like no time at all, the park announced when the attraction would be opening. The ride would officially open on May 19th with an opening ceremony hosted by the park president and the ride design team. They even had an actor portraying King Ludwig meeting guests, but they haven't brought him back since, to my knowledge. Although the facade and entryway remains largely unchanged, the first changes start right outside the castle itself, in the old garden queue. The former wolf statue was replaced by this strange, broken statue that seems to have been struck by lightning. Just like before, we ramp up out of the garden queue and into the covered portion. Here, it remains largely unchanged with the same switchbacks and decorations. But now, the park has decided to add TVs advertising the park you're currently in. Another new addition to this portion of the queue is a sign explaining the story of Curse of Darkastle, down to the last detail. It's pretty much the pre-show script put on a sign. A little further into the queue, we come across this stack of equipment that was seemingly placed here by the ghost hunting show or team that's also investigating the castle. The castle doors seem to have been quite literally blown off their hinges. Once inside, we find the same wolf wallpaper that was in Curse of Darkastle, as well as the same hallway leading to the former pre-show room. And instead of this attraction having an actual pre-show, it's just a queue line like it was the last 2 years of Darkastle. Random props are scattered about this room, and I really hope that sticker's a Ghostbusters reference. A TV displays the storm approaching the castle, and occasionally this painting comes to life with Ludwig's ghost trying to escape from a side of it, but being contained by some sort of contraption, maybe set up by Dark Tours. We pass under the former raising wall element and enter the stables queue. This section remains mostly the same from Darkastle, although the loading area is raised up several feet. Each snowmobile has a different name. One train is Frostbite, of course a reference to the haunted house, and another being Wild the Wolf, a reference to Big Bad Wolf for some odd reason, but fan service is fan service. After the train is ready for dispatch, Ludwig's ghostly voice asks us if we're ready to brave the storm, and the windows flash with lightning. And that's Dark Coaster. In all honesty, this ride is strange. It's fun and a fantastic family coaster, and it does its job of being thrilling, but not too thrilling. The second launch even has a nice kick to it. The idea of using switch tracks to make up for the short ride experience is very creative, and adds an element of surprise for unsuspecting riders. But when compared to Darkastle, it falls short. As I mentioned before, this ride barely has any storytelling. The queue obviously is immersive, but that's all pre-existing. The elements that they added have no story to support. Are we ghost hunters? Are we seeking shelter from the approaching storm? Why is he trapped inside this painting? And what's with this weird werewolf bit? I know it's a reference to the original ride, but it doesn't make sense in the context of this one. And oh yeah, the ride vehicles still look like jet skis despite being snowmobiles. One of the most puzzling aspects of Dark Coaster is the fact that the theme park industry has spent decades perfecting the concept of an indoor coaster, even a launched indoor coaster. One of the best examples of this is actually Revenge of the Mummy at the Universal Parks. This is one of the best family indoor launch coasters ever built, and I don't doubt this is one of the rides they took inspiration from for Dark Coaster, but I think they should have taken more inspiration and added more of a dark ride section during the first launch or something. And oh yeah, Verbolten exists, in the same park, in the same land. I don't understand why they needed another family indoor launch coaster. It's just a waste of money. They should have built a trackless dark. Alright. Maybe I am being too harsh on Dark Coaster. I know I'm comparing it to attractions with a much higher budget than it had, and overall it is a pretty creative use of the space. And the switch track element with the double lap is cool, but my biggest issue with it, like many people, is the fact that it doesn't feel like a worthy successor to Curse of Darkastle. It feels lackluster in several ways. I know Curse of Darkastle wasn't the best attraction ever built and had a lot of issues, but it was really special. Dark Castle may not have been the most terrifying attraction, it carried a stronger sense of horror compared to Dark Coaster. In my opinion, they played it too safe with Dark Coaster, and the result feels more like stepping into a Scooby-Doo episode than an immersive horror experience. I wish theme parks would embrace the idea of truly scaring their guests beyond the usual Halloween events. There's something thrilling about attractions that tap into genuine fear, creating an experience that's not just about speed or flashy effects, but the atmosphere, tension, and immersion. Too often, parks fall back on the safety of high-octane coasters and predictable thrills, but there's a missed opportunity for diversity. Not every ride needs to be about height and adrenaline. Look at Universal's upcoming Dark Universe section in Epic Universe as an example. This area has the potential to bring classic monsters like Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman to life in a truly immersive year-round horror experience. By creating a rich atmosphere filled with suspense and fear, it could offer a unique thrill beyond the typical theme park fare. If more parks embrace this approach, incorporating horror elements into their everyday attractions, they could provide something distinct and memorable, rather than just another lineup of coasters. As we wrap up our look at the Curse of Darkastle, it's evident that this attraction was far more than a simple theme park ride. It was an immersive experience that skillfully blended advancing technology with gothic storytelling. Though it's no longer in operation, its impact on the world of themed entertainment is still felt. Darkastle demonstrated that true fear comes from atmosphere and narrative, not just adrenaline. It's a reminder that theme parks need more dark rides that prioritize immersive storytelling and rich experiences. These attractions not only provide a counterbalance to the high-speed thrill rides, but also engage guests in a way that stays with them long after the experience is over. The legacy of Darkastle continues to inspire future attractions to take creative risks, ensuring that the magic of dark rides lives on.